By day, Samir was a highly respected surgeon with a spotless public record. But late at night, that surgical precision was redirected toward a darker obsession. He would wander the streets, scavenging stray animals, and eventually smuggling unclaimed corpses back to his private lab to run unauthorized experiments. His early biological tests relied on heavy chemistry. He would place an intact human corpse inside a sealed glass chamber and pump it full of a highly volatile, reactive smoke. The chemical reaction actually worked, but it revealed a massive hardware problem. The smoke cleared, the corpse's eyes darted open, and the heart started beating again. But there was no mind behind the eyes. The body was completely unresponsive. He had successfully rebooted the biological machinery, but the consciousness was entirely missing. Restarting a dead heart is just advanced plumbing, and that wasn't enough to satisfy a surgeon with a god complex. Samir realized that mastering muscle and bone was a dead end. To achieve true, sentient immortality, he needed to stop manipulating dead flesh and start extracting the soul. This diagram maps out the radical hypothesis Samir developed next. He proposed that every reflection contains a living consciousness, a parallel entity waiting for a physical anchor on this side of the glass. He abandoned the morgue and started spending his nights standing in front of large glass mirrors in his lab. He would perform relentless, repetitive physical routines, staring intensely at his own reflection, trying to catch it off guard and coax his duplicate across the threshold. His extreme intellectual arrogance created a massive blind spot. He treated the reflection like a passive data backup waiting to be downloaded into a new body. He never considered that the entity mimicking his movements was an independent predator, quietly waiting for him to unlock the door. The breakthrough occurred when Samir looked into his lab mirror and his reflection simply stopped moving. Samir stood paralyzed as the duplicate stared back at him, perfectly still, with both of its hands dripping in fresh blood. The clone immediately initiated a campaign of psychological warfare. Whenever Samir passed a reflective surface, the duplicate would mock him. It would drag a blade deep across its own throat, or calmly strike matches to burn photographs of Samir's colleagues, asserting its independence. This flowchart shows the mechanics of the clone's attacks, illustrating a concept we call asymmetrical empathy. The mirror entity leverages its parallel existence to shoot threats across the boundary at the human observer, while remaining immune to real-world consequences. The hierarchy of the lab collapsed. Samir spent his hours cowering in the corner, a helpless observer to a psychological experiment being conducted against him. Driven to the edge of sanity, Samir decides to terminate the project. He grabs a heavy iron hammer and swings it directly into the glass. He assumes that obliterating the mirror will kill the rogue clone. Smashing the mirror backfired. The glass served as a physical seal, and its destruction cleared the path for the doppelganger to step fully into the room. The physical inversion was immediate. A deep, violent gash spontaneously tore open across Samir's stomach, spilling dark blood onto the floor. It was the exact same wound the reflection had inflicted on itself days earlier. The clone never actually wanted humanity. It only needed to swap places. By breaking the physical boundary, Samir allowed the entity out, turning reality into the new cage. Samir was violently pulled backward into the dark, suffocating void behind the empty frame. He was now banished to the other side of a transparent wall, watching his own lab from the inside out. As his eyes adjusted to the dark, he realized the mirror dimension wasn't empty. It was a purgatory filled with his past mistakes. The mutated corpses and stray animals from his early biological experiments were roaming the void, twisted into horrifying, self-mutilating monsters. Standing in the physical lab, the clone revealed its actual objective. By using Samir's surgical credentials, the entity can access a steady supply of unclaimed bodies from the morgue, providing physical vessels for the countless shadows still trapped behind the glass. Samir's reckless pursuit of eternal life successfully engineered a permanent bridge for a shadow invasion. The entire operation is powered by the discarded biological mistakes he thought he threw away. Then, the physical punishment finally began for Samir. Samir's skin started to crystallize. His nose, lips, and ears smoothed out completely as his flesh hardened into a rigid, polished layer of liquid silver. The transfer of agency was finalized. The clone slipped into Samir's pristine white coat, adopting the absolute physical autonomy in the real world that the doctor had permanently lost. This diagram illustrates the final mechanism: reversed sympathetic magic. The clone slices its wrist in the lab, but no blood spills. Instead, all physical damage routes directly across the boundary, tearing into Samir. Any injury is instantly outsourced back to the trapped host. Samir conquered biology, securing the eternal life he was so desperate to achieve. But his reward is existing forever as an immortal, silent object, bolted to a wall, absorbing every drop of agony inflicted by a monster wearing his face.